Afternoon. Going to do a very quick, sort of like a video blog here. I had a few days off from work, so I had some strap wood, which was mostly we had a set of bunk beds, and when we got rid of them, I kept the slats, the pine slats, and I just had them in my attic for years, and plus I had some other strap, basically pieces of trim that were cut off. So I decided to continue my in the garage here, this built-in cupboard that I've been working on and off for over a course of a few years. Now I finished this up today. Started it yesterday afternoon. It took about 4 hours to complete. The most difficult aspect of the whole project was really getting the boards. All the boards had like a bull nose on either side, and I had to remove the bull nose. Which, once again, I say I never use my table saw, which I really don't. Thank goodness I had it, because I would never have been able to just the ripping down the boards alone would have taken me hours, and trimming them up and all that. What I really wanted to talk about was the fact that now what I'm going to do here on this old board here, I'm going to fill this all the way in to the top with one wide board, and I could put some pegs and things on there to hang whatever, hats, jackets, what have you. What I wanted to talk about really was people. There's a in the woodworking community, so to speak, there is a sometimes there's this underlying how would you, I'm not sure the right word to put would be, it's almost like a snobbery maybe, when it comes to carpentry work, and there's this idea that building furniture is much more difficult than carpentry. I can tell you that anybody who thinks that way has probably never really spent any meaningful time working on a job site or in construction or anything like that, because carpentry, in particular trim carpentry, which this project sort of falls into that category, trim carpentry is very difficult to do it right, to make it look good. Especially when you're dealing in older houses, houses that have been, haven't been made within the past 20 years, especially. I said before, I worked as an electrician for quite a while, and I never once saw a square wall in my life in a house. It just doesn't happen. And stud bays are just notorious for being bowed and warped and twisted. And so when you're trying to do like a project like this, where you're sort of building in a built-in cupboard inside a stud bay, it does take a lot of patience and a lot more effort in quite a few ways than it does to just build a piece of furniture from scratch. When you're building a cupboard, a stand-up cupboard for your office or your kitchen or whatever, you're going to make it square as you can possibly make it, obviously. When you're building a cupboard that's being placed into a stud bay, you're basically at the mercy of the stud bay, and oftentimes you're going to end up using shims and everything. But the point being, even to get your trim, your trim plumb and 90 degrees, and at the same time make it look decent, it becomes very, very tough. I did my best here to have even reveals on either side, which the one on the left is a little bit, it's a little wider. And the main reason there being, firstly, I had to, I was using a pre-existing board, a strap board, and not necessarily a strap board, I mean, but a piece of trim. And I didn't want to really shell out any money to do this project, which you see this board here. That's why there's so many nail holes too. It was trim nailed up and put down. And this board here, these nails here, two of those were from I only put one nail in here. Actually, that hole. Two of these were from the original, as they were slats. But you just see that's a different board than this board. Now, if this were my garage, I would have. I'm pretty. The best word would be. I'm pretty meticulous. I like all my things to match, but this is a garage, so I don't really care so much. You see that there's different boards being used here. As I said, I did not want to shell out any more money than I had to, and the only money I had to pay, really, I picked up a new, just a piece of Luan as the backer, a 1/4-inch sheet of Luan. That cost me about $15. But the rest of the project I did just with strap wood. That was really the main purpose of this. I didn't want to spend any money. It's Christmas just ended. We spent a lot of money already, and this wasn't certainly not a necessity. But what it was is every person struggles to find space in their garage, extra storage space for things, and I'm the same as everybody else. And that all being said, the point being that getting back on topic, carpentry is not easy. Don't let anybody fool you into thinking it is. I've said this over and over again. I'll put my money on a carpenter getting into building furniture being a much better furniture maker than a furniture maker getting into carpentry. You just being on just the physical aspect of making furniture or making working on a job site, I mean, is much different than most people are used to. And when I see these comments, I'm assuming part of it's just, like in the trades, everybody makes fun. The electricians, like we had this thing with like the plumbers. We'd always say like the 3 things you need to know to be how to be a plumber are that it rolls downhill, don't bite your fingernails, and paydays every Thursday. That was like one of our little running jokes. And seeing those plumbers make fun of electricians and carpenters, so on and so forth. But what I've read before, there was not really in jest. There was some pretty nasty comments made. So that's just it's just sort of like more like a blog, as I said, more like just not really talking about woodworking per se, but just one of those little things I managed to find with my spare time. This week I had a few days off, so I try to be productive, and this is what I did this week. The past couple of days I started doing this built-in, and I'll probably make a door for it at some point to match the door below, and go from there, and hopefully get a few more things done. The one danger I have every time I sort of make space in a garage, there's some lives like over here. I this little shelf I made, that little shelf over here was supposed to be a built-in at one point, but it never panned out, so I just hung it. But I always say, like, some wives, when you clean up the garage, made a built-in like this, or any type of storage, you hang a cabinet, whatever you do. Some wives are their attitude is, "Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for cleaning up the garage." My wife's attitude is, "That's awesome. Now we have place for more shit." So I don't. My biggest gripe is I do not like things on the floor, and my wife does. But yeah, hey, that's, I'm married. Every married person out there has gonna have a nitpicky thing to say about their spouse. But yeah, I like everything off the floor organized. It's just the way I am. My wife doesn't think much of leaving cans of paint or what have you laying around. So that's part of the reason I built this. Everything you've seen in this cabinet was on the floor in the corner of my garage. So that's really why I built it. And I'm glad I did. It turned out, for the material I used, it turned out just fine. It could have been much nicer, obviously, if I wanted to spend the money and buy nice board, nice pine. I would certainly use pine for a project like this. So, yeah, I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad it turned out okay. It could have been better. There's a few more things I'd like to talk about it, but it's kind of really boring and nitpicky. But just for example, I wanted to make to leave a provision so I can make a door. So I had to plane the left side here to be flush with the outer trim, but this side here had to be plumb because I want to hang a door on it at some point. So I had to make sure that was 90 degrees, and that's also part of the reason that the reveal is wider there and why I didn't mind it so much, because once the door's on there, nobody's going to notice anyway. And what I'm going to do, hopefully over the next day or two, tomorrow's New Year's Eve, so probably be doing, probably going out for a little bit, but I'll fill in these nail holes and do a little bit more trim work and then go from there. And I will keep, maybe I'll do another post about this. There's a few more things I wanted to talk about, but I'm not going to do that right now. Regarding my new sharpening center, I did some more sharpening with it, and I was pretty pleased with the results. So, but once again, if I don't talk to you guys, I appreciate you watching, and if I don't do another video, have a great New Year. Be safe, be responsible, have a good time, but watch out for the a-holes. There's a lot of them out there. So thanks again for watching, and take care.